Welcome back, everybody. Let's take a look at confessional poetry. Remember that we're after the Second World War, so that's when confessional poetry started. What we will find is these authors doing a lot of new things. They're exploring intensely personal topics. They'll touch upon a lot of taboo subjects, and they'll share their personal experiences, emotions, and psychological struggles with the audience, with their readers. In case you're curious where the term confessional and confessional poetry came from, it comes from the Roman Catholic sacrament of confession, when the person would go to their parish priest and confess their sins. But now, instead of confessing all this stuff to the priest, it's confessed to the reader, to the reading public, which had never happened before. And it was first recognized in Robert Lowell's book, Life Studies. It was reviewed, and the reviewer had never encountered poems like this, subject matter like this, and it was just really just wow, and didn't know what to call it. So he coined the term confessional poetry, and it stuck with Robert Lowell's Life Studies and many other confessional poets. We'll just be looking at a handful, but there's many other confessional poets. Some of the characteristics of confessional poetry: these confessional poets will draw heavily from their own lives, autobiographical content. They'll be touching upon personal experiences, relationships, traumas, their own real life inner struggles. So their poetry becomes a form of self exploration, like getting to know the self as well as self exposure. And this breaks down the boundaries between the poet's private and public life when they let the populace as a whole know what's going on in their personal private lives. And this is something that's really new that we really hadn't seen before. We've seen authors create a character that's based upon their own life, right? And to help flesh out the character, but we've never seen the breakdown between private and public life until here in postmodernism and with the confessional poets. Confessional poetry is known for its use of raw and emotional language that is very, very intense. And this is done to express their innermost feelings without feeling constrained by traditional poetic decorum. So there'd be some swearing involving sexual matters, maybe some masturbatory images. We could have lots of stuff going on. Right, so we've been working with symbolism and imagery in the course so far. That's going to continue. We're going to see a focus on identity and self discovery. And this happens because these poets are concerned with their own identity and looking at their relationship with themselves, finding out themselves. What is the relationship they have with others and the world, as well as human existence and what it means to be alive? These poets also were pioneers in addressing taboo subject matter in mainstream literature, including sexuality, mental illness, family dysfunction, these things that people normally would never write about, much less write about and then turn around and share that with the reading public. And one thing that I rarely do is delve into the biographies of authors unless we're allowed to. Reason being is this is a literature course, it's not a biography course, but you really cannot understand effectively confessional poetry without having a basic working knowledge of the author, because they're sharing so much, they're uncovering so much. They want you to know this. They're breaking down the barriers between private and public life. So that's why we're going to take a look really briefly at some quick little biographies of the confessional poets that we'll be looking at. So we mentioned Robert Lowell. Robert Lowell was manic depressive and also bipolar. He was hospitalized a total of 16 times for mental breakdowns. He went through many different psychiatric treatments, including electroshock therapy. Yeah, this is back in the time when they thought it was a good idea when someone was suffering from mental health to put, basically plug that person in and charge them up, scramble the brain, and it'd be like doing a reset. So that's what Robert Lowell went through. He cheated on his wife sometimes. Yeah, so that's Robert Lowell. Then we have Anne Sexton. Anne Sexton was bipolar. She was also an alcoholic. She was sexually abused as a child. When she was married, she had her own daughter, and she sexually abused her daughter. She attempted suicide 10 times before she was successful. Then we have Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath was an editor at Vogue for a while. She also suffered from depression and suffered from borderline personality disorder. She, like Robert Lowell, was hospitalized and underwent electroshock therapy, and she attempted suicide 3 times before she was successful. So yeah, these are things that the reader wouldn't know about and wouldn't need to know about to understand a work of an author. But now, due to the very nature of confessional poetry with its autobiographical content, exploring mental health issues, the focus on identity and self-discovery, and the exposure of taboos and subject matter, right? So that's why we need to talk about, and briefly, these confessional poets' lives. So as in the next lectures, we're going to dive into the text. Until then, be well, do good work, and keep in touch.